Hey everybody, it's Charlie from Daily Motor. Today we've got the tech breakdown on the 2024 Ford Mustang. In front of us we've got a 12.4-inch gauge cluster. Over to the right we've got a 13.2-inch center Sync 4 infotainment screen. And today we're going to show you how to use them both, how to use the voice commands, how to pair up a phone and use Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and try to answer any questions you might have about the system. Now before we get started, I should let you know that we've got a whole bunch of other videos on the Mustang as well. You can find those all linked below. We've got the full review, we've got a dedicated review on the 9-speaker mid-level sound system, we've got a fuel test, and like I said, you can find those all by clicking below. So let's dive right on in here. In front of us, we can see a full digital screen for our gauge cluster. Now there are many different ways you can set up this screen, and I should, point out two things here before we get any further. One, I highly recommend if you just got a new Mustang or really any new car, spend time with it in a static location, play around, learn the buttons, learn the tips and tricks for the screens. You'll be more comfortable and enjoy your new vehicle more. Secondly, I'm not going to go into every single little nitty-gritty detail and setting in this video. It'll just take too long, but focus on the systems you're going to use most frequently and really learn those. Anyway, the way you see the screen configured right now is this cool sort of retro look. I like the way that the gauges look on here, but in order to customize how they look, you go over into the center screen, go to Features, My Mustang, Cluster Theme. Let's go to Match Drive Mode here. So this is going to be what the standard screen is going to look like in your normal drive mode. You've got engine coolant temp way over on the left, then a tachometer with your selected gear in the middle. Moving over to the kind of top right above that, you see outside temperature, the current song that's playing on your media. Top right, you have a compass direction. In the middle, you have a customizable information screen that we're going to get to here in the moment. Then moving right, you have the analog speedometer, a digital speedometer within that, fuel gauge and distance to empty over on the far right, odometer down below, as well as a little indication for drive mode, steering mode, and a few other warning lights and symbols. To go through the different information screens in the middle, you use this directional pad on the right side of the steering wheel. So right now you can see we've got Mustang status showing you your drive mode, traction control, launch control, and steering modes. But using up and down, you can see various screens such as your trip information, your fuel economy, your tire pressures, digital gauges, that sort of deal. And it does seem that they've simplified this setup a little bit from previous Fords. Previously, you could go back and get more screens, but it seems like for this Mustang, you're just getting the ability to cycle through these main screens, which is not the end of the world. I think that might be a good call on their part. Again, to change through the different themes, you can use the center. So here's what it's going to look like in Sport, Track, Calm. Calm kind of takes away some of that information, just gives you your bare necessities. And then the Fox Body 87 through 93 theme that I like there. Overall, a pretty standard gauge cluster. I think it looks decent. The resolution's good. It's decently functional. Some people are going to miss traditional analog gauge pods, but at the end of the day, this is a cheaper and debatably cooler way for manufacturers to handle gauge clusters. Now, making our way into the center for the 13.2-inch touchscreen infotainment display. This is running Sync 4, and we've seen Sync 4 in a few other vehicles, but not as frequently in this landscape format. I gotta say, I like it a little bit better. It responds pretty decently, but you start here by seeing you've got this is essentially your home screen setup, and this one we're in doesn't have any sort of navigation built in. So you're getting essentially a tile right here for your media, tile right there for your phone, the clock up in the top right with the home button, and when we're in any of the other screens, we can click that home button to get back to this screen. Top right's giving you your outside temperature and some information about your connected device. We have the settings, features, and apps icons on the right. And then persistently along the bottom, you have your climate controls. Now, way down here, you've pretty much only got front defrost as a physical climate control. Everything else is done through the screen. And I gotta say, for a sports car, that's a bit unfortunate because there are certain controls like the fan speed, for example, that are easy enough to do static, but when I'm driving around and the car's got a little bit of a firm suspension and I'm shifting and everything like that, it's not super easy to reach up and fine-tune my fan speed with that sort of control. So I'd like to have at least temperature and maybe fan speed be physical, but it's all right there digitally. Let's start off by looking at this media screen. You open it up and you see what's playing. And you get a little bit of a split screen setup here that on the right now has phone, but you can, oh, no, I thought you could slide through. Can't you? What is this little indicator then? Why can't I swipe up and down? There we go. Have to really delicately, I guess, swipe up and down. You can get different information, and you can press that and maybe, yeah, flip-flop what's being shown. But here's your media screen, sources. Let's take a look at what your FM, or your Sirius XM radio would look like. You got some of your channels going along the bottom there. You can cycle through those. Yeah. And coming back home, and let's go to the phone screen. Now, interestingly, I got in the car this morning and my Android Auto not working wirelessly. I don't quite know why. I don't think it's my phone, because my phone still says, gives me a little indicator saying that Android Auto is available, but I've forgotten both devices from each other and reconnected, and I still can't get wireless Android Auto to work, so might end up having to use the cable for that. Let's hope that that works, but we'll see Android Auto and Apple CarPlay here in a minute. If you just have your phone connected for Bluetooth, this is what you're going to see, your contacts and the ability to dial a number, that sort of thing right there. Bring it back home, and let's dive into features. Under driver assistance, you're going to get the ability to turn on or off various driver assistance screen functionalities, like your lane keeping system, pre-collision warning, exit warning. What does this one do? Warns you when if a surrounding area might not be clear when you open the door. I wonder why that's off. Let's try having that on. And other systems there that you can turn on or off. Under My Mustang, then you get track apps, the ability to do launch control, line lock, the drift brake, and turn on or off rev matching. You can get an acceleration timer for timing your acceleration runs, brake performance, how quickly you can slow down, a lap timer if you're taking this thing out on track, and you can turn on a shift indicator. Under auxiliary gauges, this is kind of cool. If you're driving this thing spiritedly, you can see some information about your G's and your battery percentage. If we hit this setting, you can actually change around what we're seeing here too. You can do engine oil temp or battery voltage, vacuum, inlet air temp. That's actually kind of cool. Let's do inlet air temp. And over here, let's do, axle oil temp. That might be good too. Yeah, let's do axle oil temp. And then on the right side, let's do our cylinder head temp. That's kind of cool. I like to see a lot of temperatures, I guess. Coming back under custom mode, this is going to give you the ability to customize your custom drive mode. So you can change things like the engine characteristics, the steering feel, the traction control, and your gauge cluster. Under My Colors, this is going to change the ambient lighting inside the cabin. You can and actually of the displays as well. So you can see if I change this to more of a blue, and then you can see elements of the display changing blue. And I change the secondary down here over to maybe like a red. Then we've got some red accents coming up around, and then the blue accents. It's kind of fun. And then there's your ambient lighting down here. You can adjust that to look cool around the cabin, especially at nighttime. Cluster theme, we saw that earlier, the ability to change what that gauge cluster looks like. Coming back, then you can change the favorite button. Down here, there's a favorite button, a little star, and if you edit that, you can change it to what it adjusts for you. Really only three options, it looks like: the auto hold on or off, rev matching, and launch control. I've got it on rev match right now. Coming back home and then going down to apps, you see pretty much just Apple CarPlay and Android Auto right now. And again, for some reason, I press Android Auto and eventually it'll time out and say that the connection's not working. You got to use a USB cable. There we go. Wireless connection failed. Coming home, let's go into the settings screen now. Let's skip over Sirius XM. Phone list, that's going to be how you add new devices or remove previous ones. Sound, you have your adjustments for front, rear, left, right, fader, and balance, and treble, mid-range, and bass in there, as well as a few other sound settings. Under vehicle, you can turn on or off your rear occupant alert, the key detection alert. I actually want to have that off. Rev matching, you can adjust various chimes, such as when you change the drive mode selection. Do you want that to make a chime? Okay. Let's actually try that. I'm curious what it's going to sound like. Can I do it right now? Whoa. That's kind of silly. I understand why that was off, but hey, we'll keep it on for now. Windows, you want to be able to open them from the remote fob. Lighting, do you want the lights to stay on for a certain amount of time? Do you want your auto high beams to be on? Under locks, do you want it to automatically lock or unlock for you? Do you want to unlock all the doors or just the driver door when you press the remote unlock? And in the bottom of vehicle settings, you can actually see your oil life percentage as well and the ability to reset that. Under clock, if you wanted to change anything like use the 24-hour mode or manually adjust your clock, you'd do that from there. Under general settings, you have the ability to change between English, Spanish, and French for the language, as well as change your temperature units and your measurement units for your distance and speedometer and tire pressure. You can turn on or off a beep for the touchscreen. You can see now it's on, and every time we touch something, the screen beeps. You can also reset everything down here. So if you're going to sell the vehicle or you just get frustrated of all the things you've screwed up, you can reset that there. Moving into instrument cluster, you can see the ability to change what screens you see on that center information screen. If for some reason you know you're never going to use, for example, trip 2, you could take that off of there so you don't have to bother cycling through it. Under center display, you can choose the calm screen, so that goes very basic there and just gives you a clock and date. And you can adjust the screen brightness. I should have had this brighter all along, although interestingly, it looks like I can only get up to half. I don't quite understand why. Is that because we're in a night mode right now? What happens if I turn the lights off? Well, we still seem to be maxed out on half. I don't quite understand why. Right here, depending on the lighting conditions outside, there may be limits on how bright or dim you can make the display. Okay. Under connectivity, you have the ability to provide a actually you don't? Do you not have a Wi-Fi hotspot? Oh, vehicle hotspot's the next one. So under connectivity, you have the ability to connect to a Wi-Fi network, say at your home, for example. Pair the vehicle up with your Wi-Fi, and then you could download over-the-air updates. You also have the ability to get into your Bluetooth settings from here, change the name of the vehicle, or even turn your Bluetooth off, interestingly. You can also turn on or off various vehicle connectivity settings, such as your vehicle analytics or Sirius XM settings. Then under vehicle hotspot, you have the ability to provide a hotspot with this card, say to a work laptop or children's devices. If you pay monthly, you can have this vehicle provide Wi-Fi. Skipping over mobile apps, software updates right there. If you're connected to Wi-Fi, you can download updates for the software. Under Ford Assistant, you can use a wake word, which is OK Ford, in order to prompt the software. We'll turn that on and change that here in a minute. And you can also choose between 4 different wake words, which you can see there. If you're using your Ford Assistant often, you might want advanced mode on. That's going to give you fewer prompts back and allow you to make commands more quickly. Coming back, skipping under, well, you don't really need 911 assist. I mean, you're pretty much going to want to have that on. And I guess you're going to want to set your emergency contacts for if you would have an accident, it might contact them. And then valet mode, you can choose a PIN and then lock the valet out of certain functionality on your car. Okay, let's move on to testing out the voice commands. Now, without navigation, we're really not going to be able to do too much, but let's see what we can do. A few different ways you can wake up the voice command. You can use this button on the steering wheel. Navigate to the nearest Starbucks.
Please try again.
Yeah, I just wanted to see what would happen. Tune to channel 43 on Sirius XM.
Tuning to channel 43.
Okay, so that seems to work pretty well. Notorious B.I.G. You can also use the wake word. Hey, Ford. Okay, Ford. Set the climate control to 62 degrees.
Setting temperature to 62 degrees.
Okay, so that works pretty well. I don't think we can do weather in this car. Okay, Ford. What's the weather like tomorrow?
Please try again.
Alright, so again, not the most robust system, maybe falling behind a little bit from some of the competition for a company that was ahead of the game with sync way back in the late 2000s, but responds pretty quickly, so I do appreciate that. Now let's take a look at Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. We're going to do Android Auto first. Get out my cable here and see if that makes it so we can actually connect. Plug in my Pixel 8 Pro. Now we've got Android Auto working fine. That was working wirelessly yesterday, so I don't know why today is different. But we've got Android Auto not taking up the entire screen. You can see it's kind of fit into its own little place, if you will. So we still have some information on the right side there. Although, man, The ability to swipe up and down on that is not very good. Yeah, it's clunky. It really is. But you can see your Android Auto here responding decently. Let's bring up full screen Google Maps. The car thinks we're in some sort of night mode right now. I guess it's too dark outside. Let's go and open up YouTube Music. Everything's responding really nicely. I like that. Good screen refresh. Let's hit the super mix, see what we're getting today on the Android phone. It's playing some Epica, not too surprising. And at any point, you can hit this home button up here, get yourself back to the main sync screen. Now let's do an iPhone. Disconnecting our Android device. Let's try pairing up the iPhone wirelessly first, see if that works. So on the phone, we're going to go to the settings screen and then to Bluetooth. And on the car, we're going to go over here to settings, phone list, and add phone.
Search for your vehicle on your device and select it once it is found.
On the phone, it says Ford Mustang. We're going to click that.
Confirm that the
Pair on both the
user
vehicle
features
and the
the
phone
device
screen.
on your device.
Press allow and accept on anything that pops up.
For your safety, please
And then we're
stay
going to
alert
use
change in voice
CarPlay.
conditions and use Sync's voice
Enable.
activated features while you're
And there we go. CarPlay coming up. Very bright. This is something I've noticed with CarPlay in a lot of vehicles. It's often much brighter than the rest of the infotainment screen. So that's a bit of a downside. But there you can see your home screen. You got your nav and your media kind of split 50-50 in this smaller setup. Let's go full screen on the Google Maps. You can drag around. Really good responsiveness and refresh, but no pinch to zoom on the iPhone. So you got to dial and zoom like so. Bring up YouTube Music. Hit the super mix. See what we're getting on here. Take a look at what your now playing screen looks like. Young Gravy and Epica, probably the two most common artists for our sound tests recently. And then we got our home screen. You can see what your dialer looks like right there. And again, in order to get back home, press home. So there it is, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, the Infotainment Sync 4 breakdown here on the 2024 Ford Mustang. Hopefully I got to everything you're going to want to know. If not, let me know in the comments and I'll try to answer. And we'll see you on the next one. I'm Charlie from Daily Motor, and as always, drive on.